The biggest question in all of Tenkara is, what rod should I get? This is the first video in hopefully a series of videos I'm going to make to try to answer that question. I have a lot of Tenkara rods. I think I have somewhere around 60 rods at this point, and I've owned probably 70 or 80 total in the last 7 or 8 years that I've been into Tenkara. So I have a lot of rods to choose from. I'm not any kind of Tenkara master or anything like that. I've never claimed to be, but I have fished with a lot of Tenkara rods. And so in this video, we're going to talk about how I think that 95% of us could get away with just 2 Tenkara rods. I'm going to be talking about the 2 categories of rods that I'm going to be that I'm thinking about here, and then also some specific recommendations for you if you're interested. I do have some notes here that I'll be referring to occasionally, and of course I have lots of rods to draw from as I talk. So the first category of rod is what I'm going to be calling just a creek rod. And this will mean different things to different people. I consider myself almost exclusively a creek fisherman. I'm always up in the mountains fishing small creeks. The problem is that what's a small creek to me, or what is a creek in general to me, is not the same thing that it is to you, probably, depending on where you live in the world and just, you know, what's around you and what you're used to seeing and fishing. For my purposes, I'm going to be talking about creeks in the context of pretty small creeks. Basically, everything that I fish on this channel, I would consider a creek or a small creek. So if you don't know what I'm talking about there, go back and look at my videos, pick a random one, and I'm almost always fishing a small creek. And so the rods in this category are rods that I could do almost all of my fishing with. And so we're going to start off with, let's see, which rod should we start off with? I think we're going to start off with this one. So all of these rods are triple zoom rods. Some people call these double zoom rods because these are expandable rods. These can be fished at 3 different lengths. Some people call that double zoom because the rod moves apart twice. Some people call them triple zoom because they can be fished at 3 lengths. I'm going to call them triple zoom. That's what I've always called them. So that's what we're going to be using here. This rod is the Tenkara USA Roto. And I will put the 3 lengths that this rod can be fished with on the screen. As I talk about these rods, I'm going to be kind of going back and forth between imperial and metric units, so I'm going to make everyone angry, but whenever I say 1 unit, I will put the equivalent on the screen here. The common through line with these rods that I'm going to be showing you in this category is that they can be fished at 3 lengths that start at around 8 feet, or around 240 centimeters, give or take, and go up to around 11 feet. Give or take. That is, I think, the sweet spot for creek fishing. With those 3 lengths, you can fish a lot of different waters. You can cover a lot of ground. Again, I could do nearly all of my fishing with one of these rods. This is probably the least versatile of the rods in this category. It's a good rod. I do like this rod. I enjoy fishing with it. It's just not as, the lengths aren't quite as different as other rods here. So this goes from 8 feet 10 inches or 270 centimeters to 10 feet 6 inches or 320 centimeters. So a little bit above, well, quite a bit above 8 feet, and then not even to 11 feet. So that span, that range is the lowest of, I think, of all of these rods in this category that we're going to be looking at. So this rod retails for around $250. It is, I think, the most expensive rod. No, that's not true. It's one of the most expensive rods in this category that we're going to be looking at. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this rod unless you find a really good deal on it. If you find a good deal, great, go for it. But I think there are better rods for the money. This isn't a great value in this day and age. The next one is a good value. This is the Dragontail Mizuchi. I have had this rod for a long time. I have fished with this rod a lot. I've caught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish with this rod. I like this rod. This is a good rod. This can be fished, again, at 3 lengths. I will put those lengths on the screen. It's basically 8 feet, 11 feet, and then something kind of in the middle as 9 feet, 9 inches. So this has really good range. This is a really good span. This rod is the longest out of all these in its closed length, which does contribute to that versatile span. So if you want a really short rod when collapsed, this isn't for you, but this is a good rod. I do have the softer tip set for this rod. Let's see, this rod retails for $160. The softer tip sections are an extra $24. I could fish with this rod only and be pretty happy with it. I like this rod. It's a good rod, very capable. I've caught 18-inch trout and I've caught, 2-inch trout on this rod. The next one is, I think, probably my favorite in this category. It is the most expensive also in this category. This is the Zen Tenkara Suzumi. This retails for $268. And then I have the performance tip in here, which is a little bit faster, a little bit more stiff than the tip sections that come with this. And those are an extra $35. So not cheap. You're looking at around $300 if you get this and the tip set. But compared to a lot of like traditional fly rods, this still is not all that expensive. There are a few reasons that I like this rod the most out of all of these. First of all, it does have a good span, a good range. This is the shortest of all these. This can be fished at the shortest of all these. The shortest length of this is 7 feet 7 inches. And then it goes up to, again, just under 11 feet. It goes to 10 feet 8 inches. And I find that, again, super useful, very, very valuable in all of the creek fishing that I do. This rod feels super light in the hand. This feels more like a Japanese rod, like a higher end Japanese rod than any of these other rods in this category. I also like the thinner grip section. So these other rods, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but the Suzumi has by far the skinniest grip section of all these. I have very large hands. Like I have long fingers, and so I usually wear size XL gloves. Even so, I like the daintiness of this rod. It just feels really good. I like that it's got a long grip section. I can choke up, pretty high on it if I need to, and it just fishes really well. And this is probably, like these two rods, again, I've caught probably thousands of fish together on both of these rods. I do prefer the Suzumi. It casts a little bit better for me. I fished the Mizuchi last year after fishing this a lot, and this felt a little bit more clunky than fishing with this. And so is that worth a $100 price difference to you? Maybe, maybe not, but this is just an excellent, excellent little rod. If I could have one rod, this would be the rod. There are other rods that fish better than this, but to me, this is the most versatile rod. This is the rod that I can, I could have just this and not feel too deprived in my fishing. I could basically continue on fishing as I do pretty normally. The fourth one in this category is kind of a wild card. This is the budget option. This is the Max Catch. I don't even know what this is called. I don't even know if it has a name, but Max Catch is a Chinese company. They sell on Amazon and eBay and AliExpress. This rod is $60. It is the shortest, when collapsed, of these four rods by far. And this can be fished at 3 different lengths, again, that I'll put on the screen here. It's not the biggest range, it's not the biggest span out of all of these, but it's still fairly decent. It's like around 8 feet and around 10.5 feet. Those are the two on the extreme. This rod fishes surprisingly well for how cheap it is. Note that this is the cheaper, well, I don't know if it's cheaper actually, but it is the smaller of the 2 triple zoom rods that Max Catch sells. I have the other one somewhere here. This is the other one. This rod is not very good. It's too heavy. It feels off balance. I do not recommend this rod. But this one, the shorter of the 2, is surprisingly good. And so if I fished with just this, I would feel like I'm missing something. But I mean, for the price, you can't complain that much. So these are the 4 rods in this category that I wanted to talk about. Again, small creek fishing, the kind of fishing that I do, and the kind of fishing that I think a lot of Tenkara anglers kind of aspire to do, you're talking about like waterfalls and plunge pools and high gradient streams in the mountains. It's like perfect Tenkara water. This type of rod is really good for that. And so again, out of these, I would pick the Zen Tenkara Suzumi if I'm just looking for the best one. If I were on a tight budget, I would do the Max Catch. If I wanted to spend a little bit more, but I was still on the budget, I'd get the Mizuchi. And then again, unless I find a good deal, I would probably not buy the Roto. But if I did want to buy a Japanese version of a rod in this category, what would I get? So that's hard. I don't think there are any small triple zoom Tenkara rods. I think there actually might be a smaller version of this rod. This is the Tenru Furaibo TF39TA or whatever it's called. It's a mouthful. I think there actually is a smaller version of this, but I don't have that. Let me know if you have one of those and how you like it. I would like to pick one of those up at some point this year, but I think a good alternative if you do want a really nice casting rod that is harder to find spare parts for, it's harder to get support for, then I would get the, what is it called? The Nissin Pro-Spec 2-way. So that is just a regular zoom rod. It can be fished at just 2 lengths versus 3, but they are really good lengths. I have the numbers here. At its shorter length, it's about 8 feet 10 inches or around 270 centimeters. And its longer length is 10 feet 10 inches or 315 centimeters. And this rod can be bought on eBay or Amazon Japan. It's around $110 to $180. The price varies depending on the listing that you're looking at. That is a good rod. I used to own that rod. I fished with it and made videos with it at least once or twice. And then I think I left it on a stream somewhere because I haven't seen that rod in years. I have no idea what happened to it, but that is a good rod. I'm thinking of picking up another one. It does come in two different actions. Like it comes in a 6.4 and a 7.3. I remember having the 7.3 of that rod and liking it, but I think I want to try the 6.4. I like a good soft rod as long as it is still kind of snappy enough to cast well for me. And so I think it would be hard to go wrong with either versions. It also comes in a 360 centimeter version at its longest length, but again, I think that's a little bit less useful if we're talking about creek, smaller creek fishing rods. I think that's about it. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in that first category, the triple zoom category for creek fishing, especially smaller creeks. That 8-foot length, that 240 centimeter length is really good for enclosed spaces, for bow and arrow casts also, and if there's a lot of overhanging vegetation on the side. And then that longer length, that roughly 11-foot length, is good for more kind of prototypical Tenkara water, where you have the pocket water and all of that good stuff. So it's a really versatile kind of rod. The second category, so this video is the only 2 Tenkara rods you need. The first is a creek rod, and the second is a larger creek rod or a river or a lake rod. For that, we're going to want something that's longer. You could go with a 360 centimeter or 12-foot rod. I think that's not quite enough of a difference versus the longest lengths on these rods. Again, these are around 10.5 to 11 feet when extended. And so I think you do want to jump to around 13 feet or around 390 or 400 centimeters for your bigger water rod, let's call it. Again, almost all of my fishing is creek fishing in the mountains, but it is fun for me occasionally to fish a bigger river or to fish a lake. And for that, you want reach, you want length, you want that range so you can pick the pockets farther away in the river. You can fish the other side of a small river, or you can just get to the middle, or not even the middle, but get farther out into a much wider river. And again, on a lake, having that extra length means you can get to a drop off where fish are cruising. It just gives you more options. And in my mind, this is a great category to go for a Japanese rod. A good Japanese rod will cast really well, almost like it's reading your mind. Like it does a lot of the good casting for you. And because there aren't really good Japanese equivalents in this category, in the creek rod category, let's go for a nice, high quality Japanese rod in the river and lake category. For me, there's really just one rod in this category, and that is this rod. This is the Oni Type 1. This is a 400 centimeter, or again, around a 13-foot rod, made in Japan. This is the best casting rod you can buy, especially in this size class. This might be the best Tenkara rod ever made. This is probably the best one I've ever fished with. This is perfection in Tenkara rod form. It is so light, it casts so well, it handles fish really well, it feels good in the hand, the balance is great. It is just so good. With a lot of Japanese rods, it can be a little bit harder to find. You need to poke around, again, eBay, Japanese websites, Japanese Amazon, or just look around for it. Ask if you can't find it. Go onto a Tenkara Facebook group and ask around, see if people know where to buy one. But man, a rod like this combined with a rod like this is just a killer combination. I could do almost all of my fishing with these two rods, and we're going to get to some exceptions here at the end of the video, but really you don't need much more than this. The average Tenkara angler does not need much more than this. Of course, it depends on where your interests lie. If you like fishing tiny creeks, you won't need a big rod like this. If you like just fishing rivers, you won't need a little rod like this. But these two together, ooh, it's really good. This is such a good combination. And again, I would go for the 400 centimeter or 13-foot rod versus 360 or 12 feet. I find 360 to be kind of an awkward length, because like, if it's big enough to fish something like that, it's big enough to fish a 400 centimeter rod, which will just give you more reach, more range. And it might be too big for a creek where you might fish one of these creek fishing rods. So I would avoid a 360 unless there's a specific reason and a specific rod you want. I think these other rods just do better. And so, what else? Oh, also the fact that this isn't a zoom rod, I think is pretty good. In my experience, zoom rods are less useful the longer the length gets. So like when you're fishing these rods that can be fished at multiple lengths for creeks, like having an 8-foot rod and an 11-foot rod, those are like completely different. That's super different. But with a lot of these rods, like for example, the Dragontail Hellbender, I like this rod. This is a good rod, but I think the lengths that it can be fished at are like a little bit under 12 feet and then around 13 feet. Again, there's not like a huge difference there. So I suppose there can be situations where a longer zoom rod is helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. It's not nearly as helpful as with the shorter rods. If you don't want to get a Japanese rod, if you don't want to get the Oni Type 1 here, which I really do recommend because it is so good. I don't know if I have like a really good recommendation for you. Like I've got a ton of other rods by like American rod companies, by Dragontail, by Tenkara USA, that can be fished at around that length, but like they're fine, they're good even, but they're not amazing. This is amazing. But, do whatever you want. Let's see, the Dragontail Kokoro 360 is really good, but again, I wish it were a little bit longer. Is there a newer one now? I know there's like another version that might be longer, but I haven't fished with that. So something like that would be a good rod. It's not as good as this, but if you want a rod that you'll get support for, that you can get spare parts for, then something like that would be a good option. And so those are the two types of rods you should get. You should get a creek rod, and then you should get a more open fishing rod. There are some exceptions that I don't think apply to most people, to be honest. But again, depends on what you're into. At the shorter end of the spectrum, let's see, I have a little 5-foot rod here somewhere, if I can find it. Oh, it was on the table in front of me the whole time. Okay, so this is the Tiny 10. This is a really fun little form factor. Like, this is incredible. Look how small this thing is. It just doesn't fish very well. I can't really recommend this rod to anyone for any reason, unless you want just like a fun little souvenir to have on your fly tying desk or something like that. It is just too stiff and not very good in my opinion. But if you do want something in that like 5 to or especially 6 foot range, that can come in handy if you are on a super, a super tight stream. In that case, the Dragontail Foxfire is a good option. The Wasatch Tenkara Rods Maruki Sharpshooter is a similar kind of rod. They fish at similar lengths, like around 6 feet and then 9 feet and then somewhere in the middle. The Foxfire I think is a better rod. It's softer, it casts better, it casts nicer. The Sharpshooter I guess is a good rod if you are catching bigger fish. If you're catching like 10, 12-inch fish regularly with this rod at that length, then sure, maybe go for it. Otherwise, the Foxfire is a better rod. Another awesome rod in that 6 to 7 foot category is the Tanuki Golden Trout. This is, again, better for smaller fish because it's extremely soft, but it casts beautifully. This casts as well as like a high-end Japanese rod, and it's priced accordingly, but very good rod. It's just hard to wrangle bigger fish if you happen to hook into a bigger one. It's a little bit trickier with that rod. And so with rods in this size class, it's pretty rare for me to fish a creek that small. I'll fish a creek this small maybe once, maybe twice a year. Otherwise, it's just easier to fish bigger creeks, and it's more fun for me to fish slightly larger creeks. But like if you have a specific creek in mind, like if you live within walking distance of a tiny little creek with a lot of cover, and then sure, maybe something like this makes sense. Maybe one of these 6 foot rods makes sense. But most people, I think, can get away with an 8 foot or 240 centimeter rod as their shortest rod. And if you need something smaller, you'll eventually figure that out. And so yeah, my one recommendation, if I had to choose one in that category, that's a good price, a good balance of performance and price, is the Dragontail Foxfire. I will put its shortest length that it can be fished with on the screen here. It's 6 feet something. And then at the other end of the spectrum, this is a realm of fixed line fly fishing that I don't really do at all, and that's fishing for bigger fish. Like if you're going for carp or like striped bass or like big fish, then something like the Oni Type 1 probably isn't going to be for you. For that, you're going to want something like this bad boy. This is the Kyojin 2 from Zen Tenkara. This can handle like basically any big fish. I know there are other rods by Tenkara Rod Company or by Wasatch Tenkara that are made for like giant fish. And again, I think if you're doing that kind of fishing, then you'll know. Otherwise, there's not really a reason to go for a rod this big. Or like salmon, big old salmon. This is a good rod for that. Otherwise, stick with the normal kind of like trout, river and stream rods. And so I think that'll just about wrap it up here. Again, I think most of us, most of the time, could get away with just 2 rods. And I think it's kind of a fun thought experiment if you have a lot of rods like this, or if you're just getting into Tenkara and you're like planning out what rods to get potentially in the future. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. Let me know what other kinds of rod videos like this you'd like me to make in the future. I'd like to make like a first Tenkara rod video, like what should your first Tenkara rod be, because I have thoughts on that, or like best travel rod, best backpacking rod, things like that. Those are all things I'd like to do, but again, let me know if you have other specific ideas. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if you have any other comments or suggestions, or if you're just gonna burn down all of my choices here. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.